gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's November the 28th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and the great young wonder kid, Izubee Charles, as we discuss the news of the day. Presented today by Caneswear, your destination for all your holiday shopping needs, and Life Wallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And a belated happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We did not have a show on Thursday or Friday because Matt Shodell was somewhere. I don't even know where he was. He was somewhere chasing turkeys around turkey farms and was not available to come into the studio and do a show. So Izubee and I said, you know what? We'll take a hiatus for a couple days. We'll re-energize ourselves, get our creative juices reset, and come back today with a new Good Morning CaneSport full of all sorts of opinions and insight as the Miami Hurricanes finished their regular season on Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium with a thud. Another loss, guys, this one to Pittsburgh. And it just really, the way that game played out was typical of the way this entire season has gone. Probably a fitting end to just a horrendous 3-4 months for the Miami football program. But there is hope in sight, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, Izubee, your thoughts on just what you witnessed here in your first season of covering Miami football with CaneSport, and what we sat there and watched on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing season covering the Miami Hurricanes. Couldn't, be happy to be in any other place, but just how you mentioned, kind of game went how the whole season went. First drive, you're showing potential, you're driving down the field, and then boom, you get in the red zone, turn it over, and then game just goes, south from there. But besides that, just season as a whole has kind of been you're right there, and then boom, something happens, whether it's injuries, whether it's self-inflicted turnovers, just things like that. But in a whole, honestly, for myself, a great season covering the Hurricanes. Really learned a lot about the program, the history, the awesome fans, all that good stuff. Hope the turnout on the field was a little bit better, but year one, Mario Cristobal, we're looking forward to what he does in the portal recruiting and see how he turns his team around for next year.
Well, there's a great positive, Izubee, and that is that you are young. And I can pretty much guarantee you that in your lifetime, should you choose to stay with CaneSport for your entire journalistic career, which I'm sure you will, that we will get to the point where Matt will retire, I will semi-retire, and you will be running the show at CaneSport with some new young guys working underneath you, and you will get to experience what we've gotten to experience in our lifetime, and that is some great Miami Hurricanes football seasons. Apologies that this year wasn't one of them, but all that means is there's a lot of work ahead for us all here in the coming days and weeks as Miami goes into the transfer portal, as Miami sends many players into the transfer portal if they don't send themselves first. And Matt, I'm expecting maybe 40 roster spots to change here in the coming days and weeks. I've heard estimates even as high as 50. This is going to be a staggering reboot of Miami football, regardless of where that final number comes up. You've spent a lot of time with myself. We've poured over the numbers. We've gone through the roster. Now it's here. It's time for that nuclear reboot and the purging of Miami football. A very sad moment, but I think you would agree, a necessary moment.
Yeah, just to see where we're at, I actually rewatched the entire game against Pittsburgh on slow-mo. No, I did not do that. I will never watch that game ever again as long as I live. But what I will say is, this is a good thing this season. What happened this season is a good thing, because the last thing that I wanted was for this team to be a mirage, like when Mark Richt won the first 10 games. Everyone thought the team was so amazing. And it wasn't amazing. We knew going into this year, this was not a great team. We knew they had an easy schedule. We knew it was an average team that could just do well because other teams happened to be really bad or were supposed to be really bad. And if Miami had won 8 or 9 games this year, there may not have been this reboot, as we're calling it, this explosion of the roster, however you want to phrase it. Gary always likes to say that you can stagger around drunk and chew gum at the same time. But that's what Mario tried this year. He clearly said it after the game. He said, we wanted to win while we were rebuilding. Well, Mario, there's a reason people don't associate winning with rebuilding, and you just learned that, right? You can't do both. You cannot stagger around drunk and win at the same time. You're either rebuilding or you're trying to win a lot of games. And doing both, it didn't make sense. What you saw on the field this year was an example of that. But now he knows. Now he knows what he has to do, and that's blow up the roster, keep the good pieces. I hope that he brings in, for transfer portal reasons, I hope he brings in a lot of seniors. Because again, unless it's a free agent who's a sophomore or a freshman, not a redshirt freshman, but it has to be a sophomore, junior, somebody who did really well, who you're just paying to basically be on your team. If it's another one of these portal guys who, is a backup somewhere else, like that's not going to be a championship level guy that I want on this roster. So if you get those guys, it's fine because they need those guys. You can't only get starters in the portal. It doesn't work that way because portal guys want to come somewhere where they're going to start. They're not transferring to be a backup somewhere. So it's okay if you bring in some transfer portal guys who maybe are going to compete to start and provide depth, as long as they're seniors. And the reason I want seniors this year is because, again, there's not a lot of real upperclassmen on this roster, and you do start to at some point need to balance the classes. You can't just have a team full of freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores. You can't do that because, yeah, you can be good in 3 or 4 years, but then you're back to square one again when all those guys leave. You really need to balance this roster correctly with equal weight in each class, and that's how the teams that Miami always had championship years did it. There was guys behind guys. When it was their turn, they took over and were great. And you can't just have a bunch of guys leaving like Virginia Tech used to do, where they'd have a bunch of redshirt seniors and every 3 or 4 years they'd be good and then they'd be terrible for 2 years. That's not how you build it. Mario knows how to build it, and he knows you can't just take, 40 true freshmen because it's unlimited roster numbers. You can't do that. 2024 is also a loaded class. So you take maybe 25 in 2023, 25 in 2024. You keep just the core guys that you have now. And then you pad it with some transfer portal guys that are going to be gone in a year, maybe 2 years at most. And then a bunch of free agents who are younger, who are really good that you can build along with those guys, maybe sophomores, even juniors are okay. I'm okay with, but that's how you build it, and Mario knows that. Now the question is getting guys to come here when the team was awful and there's a lot of outside noise about how the program is a disaster and how the coordinators have to go and this and that. It doesn't make things easier. But the silver lining is Mario clearly knows he has to blow up this roster, which I think at least I knew before the season. Maybe you did too, Gary and Izubee. I don't know. But I clearly said this team wasn't very good going into the year, just had an easy schedule. And I'm, I think it's a silver lining to what happened this year for the fans that are really upset with how it went. Look at the silver lining because Gary and Izubee, Matt Shodell's the eternal optimist. I'm always looking at the silver lining.
Well, not surprisingly, there's some things you said I agree with and some things I don't agree with. Oh, that ginger juice again. Izubee, can you do you know anybody else on the planet that drinks ginger juice like that at 5 a.m. in the morning? I mean,
yeah, that's definitely a first. I thought it was milk at first, but now I found out ginger with the ice. I was kind of oof.
Might as well try it.
Nasty, man, nasty. All right. So I agree with you that they need balance on the roster, okay? And of these 40 or so spots that are going to come in, at least 25 of them, I would think, maybe a few more, will be through traditional recruiting. So those will be true freshmen. So yes, I have to think older because you want to have some class balance going through the team. So yes, 1-year loaners are great. I kind of like 2 or 3 year guys as well, like a Messidor, for example. I think that they should try to mix in a few of those. I'm not even afraid to think of a freshman transfer in the case of, say, like a quarter of Ty comes back and you can bring a freshman in who he went and he could be one of the backups in 2024 2023 compete for the starting job in 2024. So I'm not even opposed to that. But I do agree with you that you can't just have all one of the same. You need balance across the board. So hopefully they will be looking for that when they hit the portal. But the place where I totally disagree with you is that you have to lose while you're rebuilding. And I look back on this season with the teams that they played, and there is no reason that Miami could not compete with every single team they played this year. Now, they didn't. I mean, they had a whole bunch of injuries that polluted the season. They clearly had other issues that were involved that, kids just didn't seem to learn the systems as well. We were still seeing busts in game 12 in the secondary in particular. I mean, I don't understand that at all. But Izubee, you played ball. If it's game 12, okay, and guys are still out there making mentals and blowing assignments and things like that, to me, that is a disconnect with the systems that have been installed, that you should have total comfort, if not in spring practice, certainly in fall practice. You should not be busting like this all over the field every single game. We didn't see Miami opponents doing it. Why do you think Miami, Izubee, had such a problem with this? To me, it's that the kids just did not connect with the systems that were installed by the coordinators.
Yeah, like you said, kind of week 12 and you're still kind of having coverage busts. I feel like if it's week 12 and you're having coverage bust still, you shouldn't really be on the field, honestly. I mean,
and the offensive lineman turning guys loose on the quarterback. Tyler Van Dyke couldn't even survive one series the other night.
yeah, I feel like it's just at this point of the season, guys are just kind of tossing their helmets. It's over. We're not really, the season's kind of done with. So I feel like it's a disconnect from the players and the coaches, their heart not being in the right place. Guys just, all right, let's get this season over with type of deal. Oh, they're just running up the score. I mean, honestly, I felt like towards the end of the fourth quarter, they started showing a little bit more effort. But the second and third quarter, I just felt like the energy was just sucked out the stadium and kind of guys were just, all right, let's get this last quarter over with. Let's end the season.
So a lot of tension at the stadium this weekend. I saw a lot of tension. People that are normally happy-go-lucky, loosey-goosey, were very uptight, that are connected to some players and things like that. And you could feel the stress of what is about to take place. And, Matt, I mean, you've been around this for a long time. I mean, there's always some players that come and go, but I mean, this is a really delicate issue. I mean, parents are not going to be happy. They send their kids off to college and they expect it to be a 3 or 4 year, sometimes 5-year experience. In most cases, those scholarships are honored. There are not cuts. Even if a kid's not a good player, he's usually allowed to go 4 or 5 years and graduate. But look, this is a business, and Miami football is in just a horrible spot right now because, and the fact of the matter is, there are not a lot of players on this team that are draftable that the NFL is interested in at all. And this has been going on for 20 years. And if they can't do what they are about to do, which they can do, which is make individual evaluations of all 85 guys on scholarship minus the 10 that are graduating, so the 75 remaining guys, if they can't do serious hardcore evaluations of those 75 guys and figure out who needs to be here moving forward and who needs to maybe go pursue a career somewhere else, Miami can never turn the corner because they're just, it's too messed up, Matt. It's been allowed to suffer for too many years. Horrible recruiting classes, horrible evaluation. And it's not like there was one bad class. We do the State of the U every summer. This is like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive recruiting classes that are literally self-imposed probation because of the number of guys that don't contribute, leave before they do contribute, aren't any good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So while it might be politically difficult, it might be difficult on a personal level, Matt, they have to do this. There is no choice.
I mean, the classes have been rated well for those of you that want to talk about ratings. So whose fault is it? The players, the coaches? You know, you could blame any number of things. Is it injuries, unlucky?
It could be everything.
It sounds like you're putting it all on the players not succeeding, but it's not always.
No, I'm putting it. I'm not. I believe it's everything you said, but the only things that you can control is who's on the coaching staff and who's on the roster. And Mario will have to separately make his decisions on the coaching staff. But this roster piece is its own beast, man. And like it's sad. It's tough to watch, but I don't see how they can make progress as a program without doing this.
Here's what is going to happen if it hasn't already happened. There'll be players who are called into Mario Cristobal's office who want to graduate college. Some of them, it might be the first in their family to be able to graduate college. And Mario Cristobal is going to tell them, sorry, I know you worked really hard, but we're blowing up this roster and you have to leave. And that student athlete very well may not find another home and very well may not be the first in his family to graduate college. And it's not Mario Cristobal's fault. It's the NCAA's fault, because the NCAA stresses the student part of student athlete, but that only behooves them when they want to, because they need to make a rule that if a player is forced to go into the portal, stop smiling, it's making me nauseous.
I can't believe it. I'm about ready to start the Matt Shodell for President campaign right now, because this is a great point you're making and a great subject.
Well, then let me finish it. If a player is,
I didn't say a word. I was just like doing thumbs ups.
If a player is forced to go into the portal and doesn't find a new home, there should be a rule that player can return to his original school on academic scholarship only, with no opportunity to return to the football team or any other athletic organization at the school, and that program will pay for his college education to get a degree, not a master's degree, just a college football degree. And you know what? If a school and a football program wants to kick a player off the roster, they should pay for it if that's their decision, you know? And if that player can't find another home, because that student athlete made a commitment to the program, made a commitment to the NCAA to help promote that program. Did I disappear?
You did for a moment, but
wow.
It's okay.
Help promote college football. And then the NCAA just throws him to the side. Like yesterday's news, yesterday's trash, like Odell Beckham at the Miami International Airport. It's not right. They need to do something about it. They need to fix that gap in the system that's causing student athletes to not be able to graduate for no fault of their own, potentially, just that it turns out they weren't that good a football player. You know, I mean, you can't do that to a student athlete that you made a promise to when you took them onto your roster. It's not right. They shouldn't be able to just cast them aside. And, you know, that's just how I feel about it. I don't think it's right.
I agree. Deactivate from the football team, honor the educational commitment. Let them finish their classes. It won't cost the school a nickel. It's just it's a body and a seat in the classroom. I guess, you know, somebody in the what do they call it, the bursar's office, right, might do some kind of calculation. That student costs us $18,246 a year. Okay, great, whatever. But like, let those kids finish out their classes and their schooling. I totally agree with you, Matt. I can't believe it, but I do. It's one of the better points you've ever made in your 4-year history at CaneSport, setting the wonderful example for young Izubee, who's starting his career. Can you imagine what is going to be going on here in 24 years when Izubee is running CaneSport? Oh, my God.
You've mastered the art of turning a compliment into what the Miami Hurricanes program looked like this season. Congratulations.
I just hope I still have my faculties 25 years from now so I can watch Izubee host Good Morning CaneSport. I do. But
that'd be great.
But anyway, moving back to the real subject we were just talking about, Izubee, your thoughts on that? You're a young guy. You know, you just finished college a couple of years ago and had a lot of peers that were athletes in school and things like that. Is it fair that the college athlete can have the rug pulled out from under them and the educational commitment, the commitment to giving them that education and them getting their degree goes away with it because they were not good enough as an athlete.
I feel like it's not at all. I feel like Matt hit it, right on the head with that one. You get emphasized, the student first, student athlete, concept of being at the collegiate level. And when you get to a collegiate level, you're offered a scholarship to the school. So honestly, just removing that from a kid, I feel like that's wrong. And the whole situation, because this whole time you're getting recruited to come to the school as a student athlete, not just an athlete. Say, hey, if you get hurt, if you get injured, sorry, you're not good enough. You have to leave. You have to go figure it out on your own. And being around student athletes for the past 4 years I was in college, one thing that they all kind of say is kind of after football life, they're kind of just like, so what do I do from here? I'm not a professional. These past 4 to 5 years, I've been taken care of. I had meals with me prepared every day. I've been on this regime. I'm on this program. So I've kind of like lost. And with the student hitting the portal, not finding a home, not only do you lose, that daily routine that you've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years, you also lose, your schooling. So I feel like that isn't fair at all for an athlete if a coaching staff decides to part ways with him and they're not able to find another school, that they're just like left in the blue like that. So not the best thing.
All right. So, we start off this morning hitting the reset button. The Canes are having exit interviews right now with players. They are mutually figuring out their futures. You'll start seeing some guys thank everybody and say they're leaving. There'll be other guys that are told to leave. And the NCAA set up a dead period here in the first part of this week to allow schools to take care of this business with their current athletes before they go out on the road and start recruiting later in the week and start taking official visits. So this is a very critical time, not just for Miami, but for schools all over the country. And so one of the things that we have on the website today, we are calling our Miami Hurricanes portal tracker. And we will track players. We'll track Miami players that enter the portal, and we'll also track players that could land at Miami. And let's start, guys, with a brief discussion on the departing Miami Hurricanes with eligibility remaining. And there are 11 of them as of late Sunday night, and a couple surprise ones that chose to put themselves into senior day on Saturday. Now, theoretically, there could be some minds change, but what the heck is that ringing?
Not me.
There's like a bell that keeps going off. What was that?
I got a message on my email on my computer. I just muted it.
I feel like I'm on a game show over here. Dun, 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 dun. But anyway, so there were a couple guys that put themselves in senior day the other day that still have eligibility left. Al Blades did that. Peyton Matocha, he did that. And Tyreek Stevenson did that. Now, we've pretty much suspected that Tyreek was going to go and try the NFL draft. Matt, when you and I went through the exercise, I think we suspected Al Blades and Peyton Matocha as two guys that would probably end up in, not making the cut and getting the move forward with the Canes. Al's, he's a legacy kid, great kid. He's just had his career has been derailed by injuries. He didn't make much of a contribution this year outside of special teams. Played a little bit of DB, but wasn't really that effective. Matocha has been a roster filler quarterback from day one. That was his understanding when Dan Enos recruited him. Listen, you're probably not going to play, but you will get a free education at Miami, which goes along the lines of what Izubee and I were just talking about after, following what Matt had to say about it. The University of Miami did the right thing by Peyton Matocha. And he now will have his degree and he will get to go on and find a productive way in life to pursue a future. That is the way it should be. Okay. That's what we were talking about. The other 8 guys decided to put themselves into the portal well, not officially because you can't file the paperwork till the 5th, but declare their intentions to go into the portal even before the Pittsburgh game. And that's Thaddeus Franklin, Gil Frierson, Jalen Harrell, Alan Hay, Avery Huff, Elijah Roberts, Keyshawn Smith, Keyshawn Washington. Matt, again, not a single one of the 8 is a surprise. All 8 are guys that we, when we did our own calculations, suspected would end up in the portal. But it still is a little bit different to see this happening before the final game is played. Athletes essentially walking out on their teammates, right? With football left to play. That's another issue. Your thoughts on that one?
Well, certain things just bother me more than the normal person out there. And one of the things that bothered me is something everyone else celebrated after the Pittsburgh game, which is that Cam Kinchens stood up and gave apparently a very, very brief message to the entire team after the game, which was, if you don't like it here, leave. That's not what bothered me. What bothered me is when
I think what his message was, if you're not here, if you don't like it here and you're not going to let me lead you, and we're going to work our butts off these next 8 months to make sure this never happens again, then leave. I think that was the real message.
Yeah, that's not what I had a problem with. Again, I had no problem with that. That's a great thing to say. Why not? But what I had a problem with was some intrepid reporter, as a follow-up, had the wherewithal to say to him, Who else spoke up after the game, sir? To which Cam responded, not a single other player bothered to say anything after the final game of the season to his teammates. That's not okay. That shows a complete lack of player leadership, a complete lack of, honestly, coaches trying to get players to step up. I mean, what coach allows that team to leave that locker room with just one guy talking for 30 seconds? I would be, if I was the coach, I would be in there. I'd be like talking to players. Hey, you know, address these guys. You know, they feel terrible. It was their last game. The seniors are going home. At least have a senior stand up. Thank you guys all. I know it's a bad season. Something to have just one player talk for 30 seconds and everyone just goes home after the season ends. Like, that's not okay. That's not how you reset a culture.
You got a room. You got a room of 75 guys, Matt. There's 75 guys sitting in there, right? Okay. Yeah. 10 of them are graduating.
Right.
So there's 65 guys in that room that can still be part of this football team moving forward.
Why can't a senior stand up? Why can't Will Mallory stand up and say, you guys have to start this? This cannot happen again. Any of the 73 other players.
Hey, but wait a minute. Let me finish this point. Okay. You have 65 guys sitting in that room that can be part of the future of Miami football. Okay. Probably 40 of them are not going to be, or at least half of them. Let's say 30 of them are probably not going to be, and that's in their head, okay? Because it's reality now, and it's in their head. I'm not sure those guys are kind of in the mood to get up there and give speeches. Izubee, would you get up in a situation like that and give a speech and address your teammates?
I would. Depends on where my role in the team. I feel like with a player like Cam Kinchens, that's looking to be a leader, that's looking to take that next step in his career at Miami. For a player like him, yes, that's a good opportunity to, hey, guys, listen, if you're not bought in, then it's time to, pack your bags, find a new program. But I feel like I wish another player would have said something besides Cam Kinchens being the only one. But I feel like certain players on the team honestly couldn't have said something in that type of situation, saying, hey, let's rally the troops, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one. It really is. I'm sure the environment in that locker room, we weren't in there, obviously. It had to be pretty tough. So, I don't know, but I like the Cam did that. I think that was a positive for sure. All right. So anyway, so on this tracker, we also list the guys transferring, and as situations evolve, we will list guys that are going to be targets, or at least guys being looked at in the transfer portal. And we'll update this on a daily basis, so you guys will always be able to come on the website and have a snapshot look at who's coming and going and what's going on. So hope you do enjoy that. Okay. Also, what we're going to be doing is we're going to then go a step further, and we are going to break down each position group on the team. And this will be a little bit more complicated because it's going to be constantly changing. But we will do our best to keep it current and make sure it's up to date. And we start today with the quarterback position. And Matt, what a mess, man. We think about all the possibilities at the quarterback position. You start with Tyler Van Dyke. Okay, how does he feel about everything after just a nightmarish year? We're only 3 months removed from Tyler Van Dyke starting a new football season, thinking I want to have a great year and go into the National Football League draft, to having a horrible first couple games, finally getting it right against North Carolina, then getting injured and getting the crap kicked out of him the rest of the year whenever he goes on the field, his shoulder not being able to hold up. And now he is sitting here. I mean, didn't even make it past 3-4 minutes of the Pittsburgh game, and he's still physically beaten up. And he has to decide, am I in the mood to continue to be a Miami Hurricane? He has options, despite what a couple guys on the message boards are trying to say. I don't understand how anybody that calls themselves a Miami fan can be anti-Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, if you haven't been beaten over the head that he is far and away not only the best quarterback on this team, but probably the best talent on this team. And in terms of quarterbacks, I mean, it's not even a discussion. It's not even close. So why would anybody not want Tyler Van Dyke back in a Miami uniform next year? So that's one option for him, come back. If he does come back, I think he gets a massive NIL deal. I mean, I'm thinking that his NIL packages with all the different suitors that he will have and stuff would exceed $1 million. I really do. I think he will have that kind of NIL value being part of the Miami program. He can do that. He can put himself in the transfer portal and open himself up to the highest bidder out there, leaving open the option of still coming to Miami. Or, he could just leave altogether and put himself in the portal and say, I'm not coming back. So I don't think NFL draft is an option for him right now. So I'm not even gonna bring that option up. So Matt, we broke this one down. If you had to be a soothsayer right now and predict which door Tyler Van Dyke walks through, what would you say?
Well, you have to put yourself somewhat in Tyler Van Dyke's shoes. What I consistently heard from multiple people throughout the season was that if Josh Gaddis is back, it's almost a sure thing that Jake Garcia would leave, and it's a pretty sure thing that Tyler Van Dyke would leave, although there have been mixed signals on Van Dyke recently that maybe he'll come back regardless. But at the end of the day, it is about money, and it is about his future. So would he prefer to come back to Miami if, let's say, somebody at Miami, somebody named John Ruiz outbids everyone else and says, here's the amount of money we'll give you? Is that actually worth it if Tyler A isn't comfortable with the system that is being run with Josh Gaddis, B knows it's a rebuilding offense with an offensive line that I started looking at it yesterday, and the returning guys that you think would start, Jalen Rivers, Ja'Kai Clark, Inez Cooper, all three of them, to a Miami fan, they say, oh, those guys are really good. They have really bright futures or whatever. They'll be really good next year. Well, they've had, aside from Inez, they've each had 2+ years to play. Inez Cooper, as much as Miami coaches might want to say how great he was, he graded out, I think, the worst of the main 5 linemen. He was okay.
True freshman doesn't belong
right. He's okay for a true freshman, but
yeah.
It reminds me of Zion Nelson, where everyone, after Zion Nelson has a decent year as a freshman, everyone's like, he's a first-round draft pick, and he just wasn't that good the next year. So you don't know. The whole point is you don't know. So Tyler Van Dyke will be taking a chance on an offense that he doesn't know whether Josh Gaddis comes back or not, because we know it's not good right now. There's not a single explosive player at wide receiver that we saw play anything. Your top target at tight end is gone. The offensive line's a disaster right now. You don't know who's going to come in. Maybe they'll start a couple of true freshmen next year. I don't know. So there's no position on offense right now where you say, okay, I feel really good about that as a quarterback. And if he does go in the portal, you know his talent level. Like Gary said, he's a top quarterback in the country, whether he had a good year or not. He is. It's a fact based on last year. And you could see it in a couple of games before he got hurt this year. Again, he got that mojo back in an offense that wasn't working. He still did really well. And there's going to be a lot of top teams that will maybe not match Ruiz, but give him enough money or situational stuff that he can figure, okay, I'll take half what Ruiz is giving me for the 1 year, but I have a better feeling that I'll get a chance to really expose myself to the NFL and put out huge numbers in that offense versus Miami. So what do? Do I come back to Miami where I'm probably going to be stuck in a rebuilding offense and maybe not have a great year? Or go somewhere where I know these guys are already really good. They just lost a quarterback to the NFL, whatever. I'll be the guy there, and they have all these pieces coming back that are really good. I don't know what school that is, but they're out there, and they would be interested. What school wouldn't be interested in Tyler Van Dyke right now that needs a quarterback? So if I'm Tyler Van Dyke, I certainly go in the portal. I certainly explore my options, and then I make an educated decision. To say, yeah, just I'll come back, like you want me to answer it now. I don't know what the options are, but if it was my child and he could go to a program that already has an established offense and an offensive coordinator who has shown he'll pass the ball really, really successfully, it's hard to pass that up if you get anywhere near whatever number Miami comes up with in NIL. That's just my opinion. And Miami fans might not like it, but I'm just going to tell that's the truth.
Mr. Van Dyke, Miami Collective, because I don't think this one's in John Ruiz's domain based on information I have. Miami Collective will give you $1 million NIL deal right now if you don't go in the portal. If you publicly will come out, say, I am coming back to Miami. I am going to be the leader of this program. And
you think he doesn't already know how much money he'll get somewhere else, Gary?
I'm telling you, I'm asking you a question. You are Papa Van Dyke right now, and I will write you a check right this minute.
You're asking the wrong question.
Excuse me. I will write you a check for $1 million right now if you will commit to coming back to Miami next year, and you will be a leader in our efforts to get this program straightened out very quickly, help us recruit transfers, be a leader in the quarterback room, and just in general, be a ambassador for Miami football. Right now, $1 million. The offer stands for 24 hours. What do you do? Again,
you're asking the wrong question. I tried to tell you that already, but you went on for another 5 minutes.
Why? That's reality.
The correct question is how much his people have already been offered by, at least for other schools I've been told about, have already reached out,
which is possible,
back channels to his representatives. There's already numbers out there that he knows. I don't even know if $1 million is enough. But to me, if it's anywhere close to whatever the offer is from Miami that's already been offered from these other places, they're going to get serious consideration. And what I've been told is there has been reciprocal interest. Like that's just where this stupidity is now. It makes no sense. It's terrible for fans. It's terrible for the game of football. If everyone's just constantly moving teams, which will probably be happening every single year until they fix these problems, whatever you want to call them. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. Tyler Van Dyke should not be allowed to go to another program. He should be forced to stay at Miami. and that's just my opinion. But this is the way it is now. Anybody could leave whenever they want. So
I think this is reality.
You transfer.
I think priority number one when you start looking at the roster is locking in Tyler Van Dyke for 2023.
You don't have another choice. Who else do you? If he leaves, what are you getting based on what we've seen? Because you can outbid people for another top quarterback, but no top quarterback really wants to come into this SH blank blank show right now. This offense was a disaster. It was the worst possible thing that could have happened. And yeah, they can sell it as, hey, come join us and help rebuild the offense or whatever. But there's so many programs out there that have better offenses right now than Miami, better production from whatever their offensive coordinator is calling than Miami. That is a tough sell, man. And if Tyler does leave, it's a disaster. I'm sorry to say it. He cannot leave. Miami has to make sure he doesn't leave. Do whatever it takes. Slash his tires. I don't care. He can't leave because while he wasn't perfect this year by any means, and he struggled certainly at times, there's nothing better. We saw Jake Garcia struggle a lot other than the last game. We saw Jakari can't really throw the ball yet. Not that he won't be able to down the road, but clearly they felt he couldn't throw the ball. And when he did throw the ball, he was not good passing the ball. That's a problem. And those are your only other two quarterbacks that's not going to be a true freshman right now. You have to have Tyler Van Dyke back if you're going to have a successful 2023 season. I don't know how much you'd have to spend on some other top quarterback out there to get him to come into this. If Josh Gaddis is still the coordinator.
All right,
you hire another coordinator, he can bring his quarterback from that last year with him. That's a benefit. But with Josh Gaddis still here, it's going to be a tough sell, man.
All right. That is the leverage. God, that ginger juice. Anyway, that is the leverage that Tyler Van Dyke owns today. Right. Like they can't afford to lose him. Okay, so I'm going to have Izubee now pretend that he is Tyler Van Dyke and that he can fire the rock down a football field 60 yards, landing on a dime, over the shoulder to Will Mallory, even with a bad shoulder, and have people conjuring up images. Oh my God, what can this guy do next year healthy? And Izubee, you're Tyler, and I'm Miami Collective. And I say to you, I'm going to write you a check right now for $1 million. I want you to be the face of where we are going with this program. I want you to help us recruit transfers. We are going to get this thing straightened out very, very quickly. But I need you to do this right now. Don't go in the portal. We're going to make, it worth your while. $1 million. What do you do?
Honestly, I'm having to test the portal to test the options because obviously the $1 million is something that's awesome now, but potentially coming back to Miami, having another season like this, seeing that draft stock continue to plummet, you're taking that $1 million now and just kind of tossing the foreseeable future out the way, potential NFL, if things don't work out under this Gaddis offense. And if there's an opportunity out there after you test the portal that isn't obviously as good as Miami, then hey, come back, kind of like an Isaiah Wong situation last year with the basketball, where he kind of teased at the portal and then got his way where he kind of wanted things to be in Miami. So if I'm Tyler, I think I'm testing the transfer portal a little bit.
And that is why he is looking at me, Matt, like I am out of my mind when I project him running CaneSport 20 years from now. Because Izubee is going to be a super agent out there getting all these kids more money and guiding them into the portal and even milking their leverage to the max. And now it's all come into focus and come together for me. But anyway, so this Tyler Van Dyke situation is going to be scintillating to watch the next few days. We will do our best to cover it the best that we can. The people in the know right now are staying mum. Like they are not discussing it. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. It is all very high level backroom discussions that are taking place right now. So we'll do our best to cover it. And it's going to be very interesting to watch. Now, let's shift gears now, Matt, to Jake Garcia. And his last 3 months, okay, comes back off injury. He knows that he's going to be the backup to Tyler. But a backup quarterback has a responsibility to himself, his career, and his team that if he is needed and if he's called upon, he needs to be ready and he needs to be able to perform. And yeah, maybe it's easier said than done, but he needs to be ready to go when that moment arises. And you never know if it will arise or when it will arise. Well, Jake Garcia's calling came in the Duke game. And like, he wasn't ready for it. It was a total implosion. I mean, what was it? I think 5 turnovers in one half of football. He's holding the ball too long. He's not seeing the field. He's having strip sacks. He's throwing interceptions. One interception was as bad as it gets. I mean, there wasn't a receiver anywhere near where he was throwing it. And that set off a spiral where now it's all in his head. And I don't think Jake Garcia was ever the same. He had some good moments Saturday night against Pitt where we saw a little bit of what we felt Jake Garcia was, but I'm not sure he ever really recovered, Matt, from that Duke game. And now his future is in a total state of flux because he has the same decision. Does he go to the portal or does he stick it out at Miami? Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, it's always nice to blame the player, but the truth is,
I'm not blaming anybody. It was a fact.
It sounded like you were blaming.
No, because there are
ball.
coaches that were responsible to have him ready. But I'm not like I'm trying to keep this conversation focused. Okay, no, well, I'm not just blaming players, but these situations with the players, which is what we have on the website today. Last time I checked the programming for CaneSport.com for this morning, there was nothing on there critiquing Josh Gaddis and Frank Ponce, okay? Nothing at all. We are talking about the players, their future, the transfer portal. I'm trying to keep you focused. Jake Garcia, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, part of the problem is I can't mention my thoughts about Jake Garcia without bringing up the coaching, and you didn't bring it up, so I tried to. So basically...
But the bottom line is he wasn't ready.
Just let me talk for 2 minutes.
You're going to end up back at the same bottom line, but go ahead.
So basically what I viewed happening was not what Gary said, that Jake Garcia, didn't want to be prepared for the Duke game or whatever. My take on it is that
I said he wasn't.
Okay. But yeah, you said he held the ball too long, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with the inference that he wasn't prepared. My point is this, which is what I'm trying to get across here. Let me speak for 2 minutes, was that if you look at
1 minute,
if you look at the big picture and the issues that I kept hearing were occurring in the quarterback room with miscommunications coming from Josh Gaddis and Frank Ponce, sort of saying two different things. Oh, you got an email, Izubee. You might want to check that. And the point being this: Jake Garcia struggled mightily. I think he had 4 straight games below 50% in the Pro Football Focus until he played really, really well this past weekend, which to me, it seemed like he didn't believe in the system. And I've seen it over the years where when a player doesn't really trust what he's being told or thinks he's being reined in, that coaches aren't letting him be him, aren't letting him do the things that he thinks make him great, he's not going to perform very well. And again, you don't want to talk about the coaches, but that's on Josh Gaddis. That's on coaches. Instead of imposing their will and their system and saying, you're not good enough, we're not letting you throw the ball here or there, we're only running these routes. Instead of that, great coaches ask the player, what do you want to run? What are you comfortable with? And I'll tell you, I've heard from the inside.
But wait a minute, Matt. He's the backup quarterback. If you're gearing the offense toward anybody, aren't you gearing it towards Tyler Van Dyke?
Right. And I was trying to finish the sentence. I've heard from the inside people that Tyler Van Dyke literally went up to Josh Gaddis before one game and said, please, don't call this, call this. And what does Josh Gaddis do? He calls what Tyler Van Dyke asked him not to. Like, that's not okay. This is what was going on. Josh Gaddis, I don't know if it's the Broyles Award trophy syndrome or what, but I guess he thinks he knows better than everyone else. And he very well may, but if you don't bring the players along with you and explain to them, here's why we are doing this, and let them understand this is why we are a team together. Let's sit down and discuss it, because here's what I see as a coach for X number of years at a very high level. He just seems to not explain things to the players correctly, where they're on board with it, where they understand why they're doing it, where they're okay with what's being called and how the offense is being run. Instead, it's like they feel like they're hearing two different things from two different coaches. They feel like they're not being allowed to be themselves in terms of how they want to do things within Josh Gaddis's playbook. He's throwing giant playbooks at them every single week that are very incomprehensible in terms of trying to, sort of understand it all like the back of your hand every single week. Because for student athletes, it's not it should be a full-time job, but they go to school. They try to have a little bit of a social life, unless they're named Cam Kinchins. And sometimes it just doesn't work that well. So, that's what I was trying to say in 1 minute. And I think I took 1 minute and 48 seconds. So
what, now getting back to what I was asking you.
I just answered it.
Like, what do you think he'll do?
Well, I just answered it because if you don't believe in the system, why would you stay? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. What would you do? I literally just said, I don't think he believed in the system. So if Josh Gaddis is back, Jake Garcia will not be returning. Okay? If Josh Gaddis is gone, Jake Garcia will be back. And the nice thing for Jake is that he played so well against Pittsburgh in the face of relentless pressure. 14 of his whatever number of dropbacks, they were logged as pressures on Jake, okay, by Pro Football Focus. And he still threw 100. He threw for 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a very high grade, no turnover. That, I don't know why that Jake Garcia didn't show up earlier, especially when they're missing all their offensive linemen, 2 more getting hurt during the game. Pittsburgh's a great defense. I mean, he was able to do that and drop balls in really good places. And even a few of the incompletions, they were even though he shouldn't have thrown some into double coverage, they were right where they should have been. So he showed enough talent that I think high-level schools will be interested in him in the portal. I think Miami certainly would like to have him back. Why wouldn't you? But at the same time, I think Miami fans also are sort of have mixed feelings now about Jake. And I said earlier in the year, I want to see Jake Garcia play at least one game. And this is why, because if he never played this year, if Tyler Van Dyke started the whole year and you never saw Jake or Jakari play, this was my whole point from like a month and a half ago when I said the teams 2-4, whatever they were at the time. I said, we need to start seeing, let Jake start a game because we need to know. This isn't about this year. This is about the future. If we didn't ever see Jake except for backup, garbage reps, if we didn't see Jakari except for some third down runs, how would they even know that they have nothing right now proven behind Tyler whatsoever? Like, you can't say Jake is going to be the next great thing or even close to it. He had 1 good game and 4 really bad games or 3 really bad games. Jakari couldn't really complete a pass down the field. They know what they have now in that quarterback room. They thought it was great, one of the best quarterback rooms for the future in the nation entering the spring. Now it's potentially a major problem position moving forward after Tyler Van Dyke. If Tyler Van Dyke leaves or whenever he does leave, like what is there? You may need if he leaves, you need a transfer. That's basically what they learned. And I think it was so important to have learned that. So all those fans out there in YouTube land who were yelling at me that Jake shouldn't be able to play a game, don't bench Tyler for 1 game because, we need to win every game. Like this was important. And I'm glad we saw Jake and Jakari both get enough time that we really know what they are right now. Now can they get a lot better? Of course. But we know where they are right now. And we know that right now, if they were the starter for Miami and the new season started tomorrow, this Miami team would not be able to do very much on offense with either of them.
There's going to be a moment ago I asked you to be Tyler Van Dyke, and instead we got Izubee, the sports agent. So now I'm going to ask you to be a sports agent, and you are guiding Jake Garcia into the next step of his future. What do you tell him to do right now?
Honestly, I feel like that weighs into the decision Tyler Van Dyke makes. If he comes back, are you willing to sit behind him and stay in this kind of rebuilding process? Are you ready to, bet on yourself and go out to a new school and kind of have a fresh start? You've kind of seen what the result was in this offense, in this team with you kind of struggled with things. I don't know if it was, like you said, coaching or player-wise, but you've seen what had happened in this offense. So if I'm Jake's agent, I'm kind of advising him, hey, take a step out in the portal, explore your options because you've seen what happens here. You never know if you go to a different team what that result may be. If it's positive, they always say the grass is always greener on the other side. But in this instance, with you seeing what happened in this offense with Gaddis, and if Tyler Van Dyke comes back for another year, then, hey, just take your talent somewhere on and test out the waters.
Okay. Now let's shift gears to a guy that's been a little bit of a hot button this year, and that's Jakari Brown. And man, nobody expected him to play at all this year. He got some opportunities. He won the Georgia Tech game. That was the positive. Amazing the way Josh Gaddis was able to scheme that up and find a balance of conservative plays that he could run and get them out of that game. And Georgia Tech went on and beat North Carolina at North Carolina. They also beat Pittsburgh earlier in the year. So that wasn't it seemed like an insignificant victory at the time just because of the way the season was going, but it really wasn't. It actually was not a bad victory at all for a Hurricane team that was struggling. But I would say the bulk of his reps have not been particularly great. And what does he do now, Matt? I mean, I think this is a really tough one. I hope that ginger juice you're drinking is, helping your brain cells answer this question, because it's not an easy question. What is Jakari Brown, who also has the option of going into the transfer portal and trying to find an offense that suits his abilities, kind of like what we've been talking about? What does Jakari Brown do?
I'm not sure, based on what he showed this season, that he's going to have a lot of top options. Ohio State's, Alabama's, Michigan's. Who's going to be saying, yeah, we'll give you a spot right now?
SMU, Rhett Lashley, I could see.
Well, no, because remember, SMU is that Rhett Lashley offense is predicated on throwing the ball down the field. I know he was recruited by Rhett, but Rhett recruited him, remember, because nobody else wanted to come. He wasn't like the top choice in that class for Rhett. As highly as as Jakari was regarded, he was a 4-star. He didn't perform well at the Elite 11. He didn't. Even his personal quarterbacks coach said he had all these problems throwing the ball in intermediate passes, had a lot of mechanical problems. He came in as a project, and he looks like a project. That's okay. Lots of quarterbacks come in as projects and wind up being amazing. But what a lot of top programs don't like to do is take a project who already hasn't looked great throwing the ball when they could take a true freshman. As a top program, you basically have your pick of the litter, so to speak, and you could take a top freshman or even maybe 2 quarterbacks in a class if you really need to for the future, versus a guy who's going to be a sophomore now. You're probably going to have to redshirt him for a year. I hope he works out. It's not an ideal dynamic for a transfer. I would think if Jakari is smart, in my opinion, he stays here and continues to develop. He has as good a chance to start here even if Tyler comes back. He has as good a chance to start here in 2 years as anybody else if he can turn into a good passer. And if he turns into a good passer, he's going to be an amazing quarterback. That's it sounds like it's easy to do. It's not, but that's obviously the missing ingredient, and that's the key ingredient if you want to be a quarterback. So that's not a good thing to be missing, but at least he can run the ball.
All right, so he's got he's got to figure this all out as well. So anyway, so we take a look at the quarterback position today. We will be looking at each individual position as we move forward and the decision making that those players are going to be going through here as well. And in some cases, they will have already made those decisions. We will keep that information as current as we can. We got a couple more things to talk about today, but first, let's hear from today's sponsors of the show, CaneSport and Life Wallet.
Welcome to CaneSport. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has all the latest merchandise for the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Inter Miami Soccer, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of I-595, or online at CaneSport.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
Are you feeling all right?
Hey, you sure you good, man?
Hey man, how you feeling?
I feel really dizzy.
Do you have Life Wallet?
I do have Life Wallet.
Program activated.
Hey, George, you all right? Actually, I'm great because I have my Life Wallet.
All right. In some other football notes, if you missed any of our coverage from the weekend, obviously that's still on the website. We have columns, we have question and answer sessions with the fans. All those things are on the website. So make sure you check those things out if you haven't to this point. The Miami basketball team had an amazing game yesterday at UCF. You're thinking UCF, the easy win. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. UCF is going to be a tournament team. They are darn athletic and really, really good. Miami basketball had a great game with them last night, won 66-64. You could see the highlights. You can read about it. So make sure that you check that out on the website as well. On the recruiting front, Izubee had the opportunity in the wee hours of the morning outside Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday to talk to Miami commit Frankie Tinalau, as well as Miami commit Ray Joseph. And what he found was that these guys in this 23 recruiting class are remaining very solidly devoted and committed to the Miami Hurricanes. Izubee, like I said, you had the chance to talk to these guys. Give us your thoughts on this general mindset that we are amazingly, really, seeing held in place with the 2023 recruits.
Yeah, so with talking to these guys after the game, I think Frankie tweeted last last night, pretty much sums it up. He tweeted, "We're coming in ready to work. If you're BSing, I'll call the Uber for you." So these guys just all have that mindset. We're coming in. We want to be the change. I think I've said this 1,000 times. These kids really want to come in and make an impact immediately. From Frankie, from Ray. I think one thing Ray said too is, "I'm tired of seeing all the fans leaving at halftime. I'm trying to keep the stadium packed from the first whistle to the last." So these kids really want to change the program from the inside to the fans to everything around Miami. So really good to see these guys staying committed, stay solid, even after this 5-7 season, where they're seeing, a 5-game home losing streak and just not the best output on the field.
And this Frankie kid is so cool. You guys are going to love him once he's a Hurricane. And, all these kids, I'm very impressed with the character and the personalities and the commitment, a commitment really being a commitment. And that's a real significant thing when an environment is as rocky as this one has become because of the season. All right, that's going to do it for today for this extended edition of Good Morning CaneSport. Hope nobody's too late for work, as I'm sure you've been sitting in your cars, totally scintillated and consumed with every word out of Matt's mouth. And I know he gets a little verbose at times, and we apologize for that. But he did make a lot of good points this morning. I gotta admit. So applause for Matt Shodell, applause for Izubee, and applause to you guys for making us part of your morning. And we thank you so much for watching. If you like this show, hit the subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come join our community at CaneSport.com. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day and recruit great young guys like Izubee to join our team. So we really appreciate that as well. So for Izubee Charles and Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Everybody have a nice day. We'll see you again tomorrow, everybody.